peak body for volunteering in New South Wales. Grow communities and bring people together through volunteering.
Welcome to the Local Legends podcast, where we share stories of untold community spirit. I'm your host, Charlotte Bosler, and joining us today is Josh Renshaw from the Relove Foundation. Hi, welcome to the podcast. Tell us about Relove Foundation. What's your mission?
Well, quite simply, at Relove, our mission is all about transforming lives through sustainability. That's a very simple way to put it, but the long version of that is essentially when people are seeking assisted housing, they might be fleeing a domestic violence situation, or they might be returning from incarceration, or perhaps seeking asylum here in Sydney. You have to go through a process to obtain assisted housing. Now that process is quite difficult, it's quite arduous, and it can be quite painstaking. And once you get assisted housing, which is a great accomplishment, the one thing that is lacking in that process is you are essentially given nothing else but a set of keys. So these people who have come from a pretty dire situation are given a house, but there is literally nothing in that house. So this is where Relove steps in. And we basically redistribute secondhand goods. We source these goods from companies, from hotels, from the community, and we offer them to these people in assisted housing. We offer it through our Relove free store. The idea is we give people this dignity of choice, which for so many of them have been quite absent. We give them the ability to choose how they start again, and what's more, we actually deliver those goods to these homes within as short a time as possible, perhaps within 24 hours. And most importantly, Relove offers this furniture completely for free.
Fantastic. That sounds like a great initiative. So tell us more about what are the different ways that you support the community, what's involved there?
Really, our main initiative is that furniture and household goods redistribution. The idea is that it provides essential items to these families and to individuals who are facing hardship. In relation to the community that we've supported over 650 families in the last year. That equates to about $10 million worth of goods and homewares that we've actually offered. And that also means that we've saved literally football fields of furniture going into landfill. All of the furniture that we acquire, well, about 90% of what we acquire was destined for landfill. So that's probably the major way that we help the community. I think we're aiming for about 1,000 families this year. We're well on track to do that. You know, in relation to direct support to the community, I mean, I could give you several examples, individual examples of how we've helped people. But if it's okay with you, I'll give you just one that stands out. And it wasn't actually that long ago. I've been working at Relove now for about a year. And this was only quite a recent one. There's been plenty, but this most recent one has really stood out to me. It was actually a First Nations lady who fled a very violent partner, and she was given access to housing with her 3 children. Now that was fantastic, but unfortunately there was nothing else in the house, and she had no money, and she couldn't actually obtain any furniture. Now the DCJ was actually coming to the house to assess the well-being of the children, and it turns out that if there's no furniture in the house, then the property is deemed unfit to have children there, and she was actually going to lose her children. Now statistics say that if First Nations parents lose their children to the state, it is very, very, very difficult to get them back. In fact, most cases they find it almost impossible to get them out of the juvenile system. So a call was put through to Relove, and one of our founders, Ben, received this phone call, and we acted upon it almost immediately. And within 12 hours, we were able to source beds for this lady, beds for her children. We were able to source a refrigerator, tables and chairs, couches, rugs, lamps, pretty much everything you could do to furnish a home. And as a result of that, that week when DCHA came along and assessed the house, they deemed it was fit for them. So there, in a nutshell, I think is a great example of what the effect Relove can actually have.
So, given what's involved, how important are volunteers to the work that you do?
Like I mentioned, I've been at Relove for almost a year now, and I started as a volunteer, and I'd never really experienced volunteering before. But what I understood, or what I've come to understand about Relove and its ability to do the work that we do, is that volunteers are absolutely vital. They are truly the lifeblood of this organization. Without them, without this incredible passion that I see and their ridiculous commitment, we actually just couldn't do what we do. So yeah, when you ask how important the volunteers are, they are actually our lifeblood. They are our work. It would not function as a charity, and we would simply not be able to do the work that we do without the incredible band of volunteers that we have. That's
lovely to hear. And so tell us more about some of the ways that your volunteers make a difference. What are they involved in?
I can't stress it any more than I have, but they are literally the lifeblood of our work. We have an incredible band of volunteers. Some have been here since the charity's inception, so almost 3.5 years. You know, they come, they're good enough to offer their time almost on a weekly basis. And one of the things that really strikes me for the volunteers is they actually do have a direct impact on our clients' lives in a pretty immediate and a very positive way. When I first started volunteering, I did experience some other charities and volunteer work, but I never saw quite the immediate impact that the volunteers here have at Relove. It is directly impactful. A typical day for a volunteer here at Relove consists of a few things. You know, we're essentially in the furniture logistics business. Essentially, that's what we do, and how to get the furniture in and get it out effectively and efficiently as possible. That's essentially the model of the charity. And so they'll spend their day sorting donations, reorganizing the free store, which is where our clients come to choose their items. And as well, what they do is, most importantly, what they do is they actually walk through our free store with our clients and choose the items for their home. It's a pretty wonderful process. And, they're there from the beginning. The client will walk through our front door and they're greeted by one of our volunteers. They're sat down in a lovely little welcome area. They're offered a drink by our volunteers, a cup of tea or water or a coffee, and then a little conversation takes place where the volunteer will then, I guess, spend a few moments to connect with our clients. It's a really, really important conversation that happens where they connect. They talk about what things like the accessibility of the apartment, what exactly they need, if they have anything, what they're looking for. And it's a really vital moment of the I guess the shopping experience, because it does give that opportunity for them to really connect and understand the process about what they're going to. It's quite daunting for our clients. If you can imagine, you're given 1 hour to go and finish your home in IKEA. So I say, Charlie, you got 1 hour, go. It's quite a daunting experience. So what the volunteers do and what they do so beautifully is actually just assist them and walk them through that in a really lovely and soft guided way. It's interesting, Charlie, you'll notice the difference between when the client walks through the front door to when they leave. What the volunteers do to facilitate that is pretty incredible. When they greet them at the front door, you can see they're quite nervous, they're quite overwhelmed, and by the time they leave, the actual physical change in them, they're smiling, they're feeling grateful, there's often hugs. It's a pretty incredible process, and really our volunteers are not just a significant part, they are the reason why that happens.
That's beautiful, and it sounds like a really rewarding and impactful experience for everyone. Tell us more about your volunteer program. How do you manage your volunteers?
Well, the recruiting system, I guess, will start with recruiting volunteers, and that happens through, I guess, our social channels, lots through word of mouth. That happens quite a lot. I'm really surprised about the effectiveness of word of mouth, and of course through you guys, through the Centre of Volunteering. So we often get lots and lots of inquiries from you guys and through sources like the Centre for Volunteering. So we're pretty grateful for your support, to be honest. People can sign up on the website. It's all relatively easy to become a volunteer, and people come in one day and dip out. They dip in, dip out, or people have committed for certain days, every week. We've got lots of different volunteers. There are those sort of retirees. There are those between jobs. We've got a couple of people here who have been in pretty good jobs and now they're looking for something else and they're just looking to pass their times and make a difference. A few of those people whose children are now at school full time, so they've got their days free, so they might do school drop off and then come down after that and then leave before school finishes. I think it's really interesting to see that the mix. We have a good mix of men and women because a lot of the work is actually quite physical. We have a lot of different ages as well, so we've got a few young people, a few oldies. In terms of the program here at Relove, we have an induction program that takes them about a week or so to fully grasp that process, the process that I mentioned to you before about the shopping experience. So it does take a little while to understand that. We have some volunteers who are trained in dealing with people with trauma, and they've been really kind to be able to pass a lot of that information on. So yeah, it takes about a week for them to get the confidence to participate in those picks with our clients. It's a pretty nuanced process, as you can quite imagine. It can be quite confronting dealing with these people who have experienced significant trauma in their lives. And it's also emotionally draining, so we really need to give them the time to understand and develop those skills to do that. But it seems like it's really rewarding experience. We've had, I think, up to 5,000 hours last year of volunteer support. So that's an incredible amount of time committed to our charity and to the impacting, countless lives. We also have what we've now been trying to invest in a bit more is a skilled volunteering, Charlie. So these are people who come down here for all sorts of things like website development, our inventory system, for example. Inventorying all the furniture is really difficult, and we've got this amazing person who steps in here sort of once every fortnight, comes down and assists us with that. The CRM, I've got a girl who helps me with that. Marketing, we've even got a guy who comes down for health and well-being. So if you need to talk to someone, we've got this incredible psychologist who comes down and spends his time once a month. And if anyone wants to have a chat with him, we can do that. So it's some volunteering on the full range of scale.
Absolutely. And it sounds like a great program. It sounds like there's a lot of diversity, flexibility, there's pastoral care, and you're also bringing in people from different backgrounds, people who have skilled backgrounds or might be learning those skills on the job, which is great to hear. What would you say is what are you really proud of when it comes to the volunteer program? Because I can hear there seems to be a lot of enjoyment in your voice when you talk about it.
What am I most proud of? I think anyone would be proud of this charity, of being associated with this charity. And I think you can see that in the volunteers. I think they feel proud working here. And I guess in turn that reflects onto me. I mean, I'm proud of the work that we do. I've never seen anything quite like it, to be honest. I think that the volunteers are proud working here, and that really does shine onto me. I feel proud working here, and I feel proud to be associated with the charity itself. What happens after they've been here for a little while, we actually give them a little bit more autonomy, and I think that's allowing them to have their own input, which is really fantastic because that in itself is rewarding and obviously feels like they're an important part of the process.
That's fantastic. So tell us more about how did you become a volunteer manager?
So I think I mentioned I haven't been a volunteer manager for a great length of time. I was in hospitality for 30 years, to be honest, and I had no previous experience working as a volunteer manager. I started as a volunteer here at the charity, and I just found the process and the charity so incredibly rewarding, much more than I did in my previous role. So I started volunteering. I guess I chose to volunteer more and more because I enjoyed it so much. I just gradually took on more and more responsibility, and then that transitioned into this sort of managerial position. So I'm now focused on all of our community volunteers and the corporate volunteering, which is another tier, not so much one that you guys look after, but in terms of the business as a stream of revenue, we have the corporate volunteers. But yeah, so I'm focused on our community volunteers and also the corporate volunteering.
Yeah, that's great. So what skills have you found useful as a volunteer manager, especially as one with a newer volunteer manager?
Yeah, so coming from hospitality, I did actually find that there were pretty direct transferable skills. Interestingly enough, it's both a people business. It's both in relating to people, and it's something that I've managed to be able to transfer those skills across. I think communication is really important. I mean, I know that's not specific to my role. I think it's specific to lots of roles, but I do find the open communication is really, really important. You have got to be organized, which I'm learning to do more and more. And I really believe there's an empathy that you need in this role to be able to see how things might work through other people's eyes. I found those skills are extremely useful. The idea or the ability to create an experience and managing people, I think, have both been, attributed to my hospitality and to what I'm doing now. Yeah, I think they're pretty important skills.
Yeah, some really great insights there. And what would you say to someone as like an aspiring volunteer manager? How could they develop those skills, do you think?
I've never been great at giving advice, but I can definitely say that it takes practice. I'm obviously still learning very much in my role. It does take practice, and I think if you can incorporate whatever you're doing now into perhaps leading small groups, you got to volunteer, obviously, to see what it's like as a volunteer. I think volunteering in various roles really gave me, prior to taking on the role as a manager, that really helped me to see how other charities work, to see what they do in their group situations and their volunteer situations. And there's also, plenty of courses available in non-for-profit management. In fact, I think you guys do a bunch. So I've actually done one already that you guys offered a little webinar just the other day, which I took on, which I found fantastic. So there's lots of stuff out there, and especially perhaps if anyone's interested, to hit your website, because you'll be able to find some of those there for sure.
Yeah, that's great. That's great advice. What would you say some of the common challenges are when involving volunteers, and how have they changed over time?
Yeah, it's a good question, because I think it's really the most challenging I would find would be keeping our volunteers engaged and feeling valued. I think it's really easy to take people's goodwill for granted, especially when the majority of people are actually offering that. So I think it's vital not to do that. Our volunteers are so integral to our operation, and it can be sometimes, a little difficult to get new volunteers. It sort of comes in waves. So it's really crucial to create that fulfilling experience. We do have a fulfilling experience, but it's equally just as important to recognize and appreciate the volunteers, who do stuff every single day. I think by rewarding them, and I think by acknowledging and appreciating their efforts, it's sort of paramount to that feeling of fulfillment as well. It's not just about doing the good, but then being appreciated for doing that. I think I mentioned before that once we have volunteers who've been there for a little while, become really familiar with our systems, and we do allow them some sort of autonomy. And what I think is really important, we actually allow them to input into our systems and ask them about what they think how this would work and how it might work better. And I think that's also really, really important. Your second part of your question was in relation to how they changed. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right.
So like I mentioned, I haven't actually been a volunteer manager for a great amount of time, but I've seen the charity grow. We've grown exponentially in the last year. We started absolutely a tiny little charity 3.5 years ago, and now we're a huge warehouse with lots and lots of volunteers, and we're servicing about 5 families a day or 25 families a week. So we've gone from doing about 5 a week to 25 a week. So it's a huge growth. And I guess there's been significant changes to those processes, and that's led to changes to volunteering. I think it's really important to keep that mission, or articulate the mission and articulate the tasks that they're responsible for, so they can continue to keep doing that incredible work that they're doing.
Yeah, fantastic. And so when you say reiterating that, is that part of how you communicate that change to volunteers?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So exactly. So really at the heart of it is what we're doing is helping people and doing that in a sustainably way. And I think it's really important to keep reiterating that, so people understand exactly what the mission is and what the end goal is. Because it can, if you do it for a long time, you can sort of lose sight of the actual goal. And that's with everyone. That's with the paid staff and the volunteering staff. So I think it's really important to keep reiterating that.
Yeah, absolutely. Sounds like communication absolutely would be really important in that. And what do you hope is the future normal for volunteering?
It's really interesting for me because not having come from volunteering in Australia, and particularly in Sydney, and particularly with my friends and the people that I know, yeah, I really want to normalize it. I just don't think, my idea of volunteering has changed immeasurably since been working for a charity. When you talk of volunteering, if you'd asked me a year and a half ago what I thought volunteering was, I'd tell you it was a bunch of old ladies knitting and having cups of tea. That was my idea of volunteering. I had no idea about the essential role and the importance and the connection and the community and really the idea of community and individual fulfillment that's granted by volunteering. Volunteering has completely changed my trajectory in regards to my work. It's also changed my wife's. My wife works in the non-for-profit, and the idea of normalizing it and making it accessible to everyone would be really, really a dream for me, because I didn't understand it. I didn't know what it meant. And now that I see what happens, how it works, and the benefits, not just to the people that we impact, but also to the person who actually volunteers, it's incredibly fulfilling. It really is a wonderful thing to do. I think through places like the Centre for Volunteering, where you can actually go online and choose your volunteering, you've got to make sure that you're choosing areas that have your interest, obviously, like anything, because that leads to people who are properly engaged in what they're trying to do. But yeah, the idea about normalizing, about making it part of our lives, about making it part of what you can do to fill your cup or to get a better sense of understanding about what it's like to live in a community. We often talk about, or our founders, Ben and Ren, they often talk about this idea of community. The people that we help, it's not like an us and them. It's all us, and we're all part of this community, and we are all just helping each other. Last school holidays, we had a whole family come down and volunteer for 2 days out of their holidays. It was such a beautiful thing to see the mother, the father, and their 3 children spend a day in the warehouse actually helping people. My wish for the future volunteering is to have that normalized.
Yeah, that's a great answer. And thank you so much for sharing everything today. It's, I think, really valuable to hear your thoughts around, you've been here for a year and you've seen so much growth in your own organization that's doing such great work in the community, and to hear your perspective on volunteering is really valuable. So thank you so much for sharing with us today.
You've been listening to Voices of Volunteering, presented by the Centre for Volunteering. For resources, tools, training and news, head over to our website, volunteering.com.au.